All India Radio presents Morning News. Good morning. I am Saira Mujtaba and with me is Sarabjit Kaur. The headlines. Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council to release competitive roadmap for India at 100 in New Delhi today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls upon IFS officers to help popularize millets for the benefit of farmers. UN General Assembly President Abdullah Shahid says people-to-people ties and key agreements make India-Maldives relations outstanding. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to embark on a 3-day visit to United Arab Emirates tomorrow for India-UAE strategic dialogue. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the only leader after Mahatma Gandhi who understood the sentiments of masses. Government is in the process to incorporate sports and its various aspects in school curriculum, says Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. Reliance Jio partners with Meta, Google, Microsoft and Intel to roll out 5G services in India by Diwali. Death toll in Pakistan flood rises to 1,136. Around 33 million people affected. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expresses sadness over the devastation. And in US Open tennis, reigning champion Daniil Medvedev enters second round of men's singles, beating Stefan Kozlov. And now the news in detail. The Economic Advisory Council to Prime Minister Eacpm will release the Competitiveness Roadmap for India at 100 in New Delhi today. It will be released in the presence of Council Chairman Bibek Deb Roy, G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant and Council Member Sanjeev Sanyal. The roadmap stands to inform and guide the way for India to become a higher income country by 2047. It proposes policy goals, principles and approaches to further drive India's economy in the direction of sustainability and resilience, embedded in social progress and shared prosperity. The roadmap presents an integrated agenda of prioritized initiatives based on a thorough examination of India's present economic state and competitive advantages. The officer trainees of 2021 batch of Indian Foreign Service called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi yesterday. During the interaction, the Prime Minister congratulated officer trainees on joining the service and said they will now get an opportunity to represent the country on the world stage. Talking about 2023 being the International Year of Millets, the Prime Minister discussed how the officers can contribute in popularizing millets for the benefit of farmers. He spoke about the health benefit and environment-friendly nature of millets. Mr. Modi also talked about lifestyle for environment, stressing that small changes in lifestyle can benefit the environment. Officer trainees discussed the Panch Pran and gave inputs about how IFS officers can contribute towards their attainment. The Prime Minister exhorted the officer trainees to think and plan long-term for the next 25 years and play a vital role for the growth of the country. Talking to AIR News, Niti Aayog member Ramesh Chandra said, UN has declared the year 2023 as the International Year of Millets on the suggestion of India. He said, to promote millets throughout the country, various programs will be
2023 जो है उसे इंडिया के अनुरोध पर यूएनओ ने इंटरनेशनल ईयर ऑफ मिलेट मान लिया है। तो इस साल में हम मिलेट को प्रमोट करने के लिए देश में और विदेश में सब जगह व्यापक प्रयास करेंगे और उसके बहुत से रीजन हैं। एक तो ये है कि ये बहुत हार्डी क्रॉप्स हैं, क्लाइमेट चेंज, वाटर स्ट्रेस, उन सबको टॉलरेट कर लेते हैं। दूसरा ये है कि मिलेट की जो न्यूट्रिशन क्वालिटी है वो बहुत ज्यादा सुपीरियर है कंपेयर टू हमारे जो राइस है और बीट है। उसके लिए जरूरी है कि हम प्रोडक्शन के लिए फार्मर को की प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी इंक्रीज करें। तो उसमें टेक्नोलॉजी भी डेवलप हो रही है, मार्केट को भी एम्फेसिस दे रहे हैं, कंज्यूमर में भी अवेयरनेस क्रिएट कर रहे हैं।
UN General Assembly President and Maldives Foreign Minister Abdullah Shahid has said that people-to-people ties and key agreements make India-Maldives relations outstanding. In an interview to a news agency, Mr. Shahid said the number of projects that have been going on and agreements that have been signed in the last few years have been outstanding.
He said Maldives-India relationship is the highest we have seen in our bilateral history. He said PM Modi attended swearing-in ceremony of President Ibrahim Mohammed Solih. Later, the Maldives president also visited Delhi. Calling out for reforms in UN governance, Mr. Shahid said that the Security Council must reflect the reality of geopolitics of the current world order. The UNGA president termed India as the world's pharmacy and said that New Delhi has reached not only the neighbouring countries but as far as Latin America and the Pacific and has shown its face of compassion. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will embark on a 3-day visit to United Arab Emirates tomorrow. He will co-chair the 14th India-UAE Joint Commission meeting and 3rd India-UAE Strategic Dialogue with Foreign Minister of UAE Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan. During the visit, Dr. Jaishankar will also meet other dignitaries of UAE. External Affairs Ministry said these meetings will provide an opportunity to review the entire spectrum of comprehensive strategic partnership between India and UAE. The ministry said there has been regular exchange of high-level interaction between India and UAE. Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid a visit to Abu Dhabi in June this year and met UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Both leaders also participated in the I2U2 summit in July this year.
President Draupadi Murmu has said the government is committed to connecting every Indian with a formal banking channel to ensure delivery of benefits to the beneficiaries without any pilferage. She was discussing various aspects of bilateral relations between India and the Netherlands with Queen Maxima of the Netherlands, who is on a 3-day visit to India. The two leaders discussed the Universal Financial Inclusion initiatives. Queen Maxima appreciated the progress made in India in this direction in the last few years. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the only leader after Mahatma Gandhi who understood the sentiments of the masses. Mr. Singh heaped praises on Mr. Modi's governance and organizational capabilities and said he has no parallel in contemporary politics. Speaking at the release of a book, The Architect of the New BJP, How Narendra Modi Transformed the Party, Rajnath Singh said the Prime Minister directly connects with the people who in turn trust him.
इसी तरह महात्मा गांधी भी कहा करते थे, if we would change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. तो वह भी अपने अंदर झांकने और अपनों के प्रति उन्मुख होने और अपने इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की ही बात करते हैं। और आज हम अमृतकाल में प्रवेश कर रहे हैं और आपने लाल किले की प्राची से प्रधानमंत्री के भाषण को सुना होगा, उन्होंने 5 प्रण लेने की बात कही है। विकसित भारत, दास मानसिकता से मुक्ति, अपनी विरासत पर एकता, ये प्रण के फाउंडेशन में देशवासियों से कर्तव्य सराहना की बात करते हैं।
He said whatever work was assigned by the party, Mr. Modi carried it out and delivered more than the expectations. Mr. Singh cited surveys to assert that Mr. Modi's enduring popularity has left not only Indian but also global leaders behind.
Over the past 75 years since independence, India's largest public service broadcaster, All India Radio, has been the proverbial storyteller for the 1.3 billion citizens across the country. All India Radio is celebrating 75 years of freedom with the series Azad Bharat Ki Baat, Akashvani ke Saath. It showcases the journey of India since independence in various walks of life through the storytelling of All India Radio. Azad Bharat Ki Baat, Akashvani ke Saath, reliving the journey of India since independence over the last 75 years with All India Radio. From 15th August, the series is being broadcast on All India Radio, 100.1 FM Gold Channel, primetime news bulletins and across all its platforms. Tune in to stay updated with All India Radio. In today's episode, we bring you the story of the dark days of emergency in India.
In the year 1975, in a significant political development, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's win in the 1971 Rai Bareli parliamentary elections came under scrutiny. Socialist leader Raj Narayan, who had contested against her, filed a petition in the Allahabad High Court accusing Mrs. Gandhi of having won the election through corrupt practices and misuse of government machinery. On the 12th June 1975, Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha declared Indira's election as null and void. He also barred her from contesting an election for 6 years, but gave the Congress 20 days to find a replacement Prime Minister. Mrs. Gandhi appealed against the verdict in the Supreme Court. On the 24th June 1975, the Apex Court granted a conditional stay, but ordered her not to oversee any parliamentary proceedings. On the 25th June 1975, President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed declared national emergency by invoking Article 352 of the Indian Constitution for maintaining national security amid internal disturbance. On June 26, from the All India Radio studios, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi said, "The President has proclaimed emergency. There is nothing to panic about."
भाइयों और बहनों, राष्ट्रपति जी ने आपातकाल की घोषणा की है।
This announcement by then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi hurled India into the darkest period of her democratic history.
The period of emergency lasted for around 21 months, starting from midnight of 25th June 1975 till its withdrawal on the 21st March 1977. During this time, restrictions were imposed on the fundamental rights of the citizens as well as censorship of the press. Lok Nayak Jayaprakash Narayan started a movement against the autocracy.
चाहे वो प्रधानमंत्री हो, मुख्यमंत्री हो, विरोधी पक्ष के नेता हो, कोई भी हो, ऐसा लगता है कि लोग असहाय हैं इस परिस्थिति में। किस परिस्थिति में? ये सारा भ्रष्टाचार फैला हुआ है, जिस भ्रष्टाचार के कारण इन कानूनों का कार्यान्वयन नहीं हो रहा है, अमल में नहीं लाया जा रहा है, लाए जा रहे हैं कानून और लाए भी जा रहे हैं तो गलत तरीके से लाए जा रहे हैं.
Those who opposed the decision of the government were arrested. This period is regarded as one of the darkest days in the history of democracy in India. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was in the forefront opposing the emergency.
अनुशासन के नाम पर अनुशासन का खून भंग कर दिया संघ को, कैसा चढ़ा जुनून, कैसा चढ़ा जुनून, मत पूजा प्रतिबंधित, कुटिल कर रहे केशव कुल की कीर्ति कलंकित, कह दी कविराय तोड़ कानूनी कारा, गूंजेगा भारत माता की जय का नारा.
Once the emergency was lifted on the 21st March 1977, the country witnessed fresh elections, in which the Congress party lost and the Janata Party came to power.
आजाद भारत की बात आकाशवाणी के साथ can be accessed on AIR News Alerts on Twitter, News on AIR official YouTube channel, News on AIR app, Facebook and Instagram handles. So tune into All India Radio News for Azad Bharat Ki Baat Akashvani ke saath. You're listening to the morning news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council to release competitive roadmap for India at 100 in New Delhi today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls upon IFS officers to help popularize millets for benefit of farmers. UN General Assembly President Abdullah Shahid says people-to-people ties and key agreements make India-Maldives relations outstanding. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to embark on 3-day visit to United Arab Emirates tomorrow for India-UAE strategic dialogue. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the only leader after Mahatma Gandhi who understood the sentiments of masses. Government is in the process to incorporate sports and its various aspects in school curriculum, says Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. Reliance Jio partners with Meta, Google, Microsoft and Intel to roll out 5G services in India by Diwali. Death toll in Pakistan flood rises to 1,136, around 33 million people affected. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expresses sadness over the devastation. And in US Open tennis, reigning champion Daniil Medvedev enters second round of men's singles, beating Stefan Kozlov. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
अगर आप कॉम्पिटिशन्स की तैयारी कर रहे हैं तो आप सबों के लिए ऑल इंडिया रेडियो की प्रेजेंटेशन है अभ्यास, एक ऐसा प्रोग्राम जहां हमें 9289094044 पर व्हाट्सएप करते हैं आप अपने ऑडियो सवाल या फिर ईमेल करते हैं abhyas.airnews@gmail.com पर और इसका जवाब एक्सपर्ट देते हैं रात 9:30 बजे शनिवार को। ज्योग्राफी यानी कि भूगोल है इस बार का विषय और सवाल भेजने की अंतिम तारीख है 31 अगस्त। आपका अभ्यास हमारा प्रयास।
अपने बिजनेस को बढ़ाने के लिए लीजिए आकाशवाणी का सहयोग और दीजिए उसे बुलंदियों के पंख।
आपका बिजनेस लोकल है या राष्ट्रीय, आकाशवाणी देती है उपभोक्ताओं तक पहुंचने का हर विकल्प।
और अब तो आप घर, दफ्तर या दुकान पर बैठे बैठे कर सकते हैं आकाशवाणी के किसी भी केंद्र के लिए विज्ञापनों की बुकिंग।
आकाशवाणी के विभिन्न चैनलों पर विज्ञापन देना सुलभ और सस्ता।
बुकिंग है तो संपर्क करें 8700014242 पर
8700014242।
Welcome back. You're listening to Morning News. Government is in the process of including sports and its various aspects into the school curriculum. Interacting with athletes and fitness icons on National Sports Day yesterday, along with Youth Affairs and Sports Minister Anurag Thakur, Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan said that the centre is making every effort to popularize sports and nurture sporting talent. He said the National Education Policy 2020 also envisages sports as part of curriculum and lays emphasis on sports integrated learning as well as adopting fitness as a lifelong attitude. Mr. Pradhan added that the centre is also rolling out National Credit Framework with due weightage to sports. He said award of academic credits for sporting activities will act as a catalyst in popularizing sports. Speaking on the occasion, Sports Minister Anurag Thakur said, the time has come to make India a sports hub and a sports superpower as envisioned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The launch of the second Fit India School Quiz was also announced during the program. The registration of schools for the second edition will open on the 3rd of next month and will continue till the 15th of October. It was for the first time this year that the National Sports Day was celebrated across the country by the Sports Ministry as a mega sports festival. Reliance Jio has partnered with some of the world's leading technology giants such as Meta, Google, Microsoft and Intel to roll out 5G services by Diwali in key metro cities of India. Jio has partnered with Meta, formerly Facebook, for immersive technology, while with Google it has collaborated to develop ultra-affordable 5G smartphones. On cloud, Jio has partnered with Google Cloud and Microsoft Azure to ensure a vibrant ecosystem of cloud-enabled business applications. The company has picked chipmaker Intel for cloud-scale data centers and 5G edge locations. Jio will launch 5G services in 4 metro cities, that is Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata and Chennai by Diwali. These will be expanded to other cities and towns in phases, rapidly to cover the entire country by December 2023.
Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren has announced an assistance of 10 lakh rupees to the family members of Ankita Singh, who was set ablaze by a youth named Shahrukh Hussain. Ankita, a class 12 student of Dhumka district, was set ablaze by Shahrukh Hussain on August 23rd for refusing his marriage proposal. The accused has been arrested. Chief Minister has directed the trial of the case in a fast-track court. Governor Ramesh Bais has summoned the Chief Secretary Sukhdev Singh and DGP in the case. Union Minister Arjun Munda said that the district administration should get the guilty punished through speedy trial. Taking cognizance of the matter, National Commission for Women has sought an action-taken report from DGP Jharkhand within 7 days. Ankita died on August 28th early in the morning while undergoing treatment at RIMS Hospital in Ranchi. The Supreme Court has sought a response from the Karnataka government on pleas challenging the High Court's verdict on hijab in educational institutions of the state. The Karnataka High Court had refused to lift the ban on hijab in educational institutions. The Supreme Court also issued a notice in the matters as well as on the prayer to stay the High Court's judgment. The court turned down the request for more time and fixed the matter for a hearing on 5th of September. On March 15, a full bench of the Karnataka High Court dismissed petitions filed by Muslim female students in Udupi seeking the right to wear hijab in classrooms.
Pakistan's climate change minister has said that a third of the country is underwater as a result of flooding caused by record monsoon rains. Calling it the monster monsoon of the decade, Climate Change Minister Sherry Rahman said there is no dry land to pump the water out. She also said the death toll is likely to rise as many areas in the north of the country remain cut off with dozens of rivers still in full flood. Ms. Rahman appealed for international assistance while also blaming major industrialized countries for their role in global warming. According to the officials, at least 33 million people have been affected by the floods, which have killed over 1,000 people since the monsoon began in June. The flash floods have washed away roads, homes and crops, leaving a trail of deadly havoc across the country. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that he is saddened to see the devastation caused by the floods in Pakistan. Mr. Modi extended his heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims, the injured and all those affected by this natural calamity. In a tweet, Mr. Modi has hoped for an early restoration of normalcy. In Morning Matters, now let's listen to a discussion on Sports in India, recent achievements and initiatives. The participants are Vijay Lokapalli, sports expert, and Rupa Ramani, journalist.
Hello and welcome. Yes, it's a special discussion. Anyone who's connected to sports, more so us here. And of course, joining me here is someone who's been around for so many years. He's covered multidisciplinary events across sports. Vijay Lokapalli, thank you so much for joining in, Vijay.
Thank you, Rupa.
Vijay, just your thoughts on something that sort of captured the imagination of so many people just a few weeks back, which was the Commonwealth Games. I think that's a good place to start to sort of talk about where India stands on the global stage when it comes to sports. Your thoughts on how India fared?
Yes, Rupa, I think the trend was set by Tokyo Olympics. After the dreaded pandemic, it was so good to see India doing well on a global stage, and especially Neeraj Chopra and Mirabai Chanu. I mean, they led the brigade. So much of optimism around, and then so much of good news for the youth of the country that they could look forward to doing well, and they did well at the Commonwealth Games, where again we had some outstanding performances from the young athletes.
Oh, that sounds good, Vijay. Obviously, there were a few concerns when you talk about certain disciplines, not having archery, not having shooting. That was a bit of sort of concerning aspect for a lot of Indian sports officials, people connected with those organizations, those associations here. Thoughts on something like that? Do we even look at that and do you say, okay, that's important to have certain different skill sets to be exercised in a multidisciplinary event?
Well, I think you have to give it to the host because they have the prerogative to kind of decide. And here, shooting and archery, they feel that they are not a spectator sport. That's what I had gathered when I was reading about it. So it was a big blow to India's medal tally, no doubt about that. But then of late, archers were also struggling. But shooting, yes. I mean, shooting is an international sport. So to be denied medals in these events, so that was a big blow, definitely. But I think government has done exceptionally well. It has kept hockey alive. It has kept all these small sports alive by giving the athletes the funds they require, the infrastructure that is needed, the best of training facilities, getting them modern, the infrastructure and support staff like coach science, nutritionist, and there are a whole lot of things. I mean, you are well aware, you have been covering also the events, multi-sport events. So I think a lot of credit I will give to the government. They have done their best to put sportsmen in a priority list, and the sportsmen are also very happy.
Your thoughts on India being a host for an Olympics? Do you see that happening? How soon? How long will it take for India to be an Olympic host?
India is moving in that direction. We have been great organizers. You have seen the World Cup for the juniors was organized, and we are now going to have another Junior World Cup for the girls. And Asian Games we have organized. We have been host to Commonwealth Games also. And the players who come, they went home very, very happy, claiming, I mean, they were praising the hospitality. So which is what we are known for being very, very hospitable people. And yes, it will be great if we move towards that direction. We have a couple of big cities to host Olympics, and we are now a very progressive nation looking towards making a mark at the international level in every field. And also at some point, I'm sure the administrators also must be planning and dreaming of hosting an Olympics.
Oh, fabulous. Well put, Vijay. There has been so many positives, especially for India as a sporting country, particularly over the last few years. We've seen so many interesting athletes, not just the ones who we're so used to seeing, but like Vijay mentioned, Sable, that race, no one can forget him sort of breaking him and almost clinching the gold, just missing it by a fraction. But yes, that's what sporting moments and memories are for us, and everyone sort of, including the government, particularly the government, working towards making something like this so special. We enjoyed this discussion, and thank you so much for listening in.
You were listening to a discussion on sports in India, recent achievements and initiatives. The participants were Vijay Lokapalli, sports expert, and Rupa Ramani, journalist.
In sports news, in the US Open, reigning champion Daniil Medvedev started this year's campaign with the victory over American Stefan Kozlov in men's singles first round last night. Former world number 1 Andy Murray also registered a victory over 24th seed Francisco Cerundolo to enter the second round. In women's singles, Russian Veronika Kudermetova, French Carolina Garcia and 29th seed American Alison Risk Amritraj moved into the second round. World number 3 Greek Maria Sakkari also won her first round, beating German Tatjana Maria. However, former world number 1 Simona Halep was knocked out of the tournament, losing to Ukrainian qualifier Daria Sinigur. Novak Djokovic is not playing in the tournament, the second Grand Slam this year, due to dispute related to Corona protocol.
In Durand Cup football, debutants Mumbai City FC entered the quarter-finals, beating Rajasthan United FC 5-1 at the Kishore Bharti Krilangan last evening. Earlier in another match, Odisha defeated Sudeva Delhi 3-0 at Indira Gandhi Athletic Stadium in Guwahati. Today, Neroka FC will take on Hyderabad at 3 p.m. in Imphal, while Bengaluru will face Goa at 6 p.m. in Kolkata. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast for today. National capital Delhi will have a generally cloudy sky with light rain or drizzle. Mumbai will have a generally cloudy sky with light rain. Chennai will have a partly cloudy sky with possibility of moderate rain or thunderstorm. Kolkata will have a partly cloudy sky with possibility of moderate rain or thunderstorm. Hyderabad, Bengaluru and Visakhapatnam will have a generally cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain or thunder showers. Guwahati will have a generally cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain or thunder showers. And Imphal will have a partly cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain or thunder showers. Itanagar, Shillong, Kohima and Aizawl will have a generally cloudy sky with light rain.
And now an overview of today's newspapers. Different papers have carried a variety of stories today. The big story across dailies is Mukesh commits rupees 2 lakh crore to roll out 5G in metros by Diwali, writes the Hindu business line. The sensational immolation of a 17-year-old girl by her stalker has triggered massive protests in Jharkhand, the Pioneer notes. Schoolgirl set on fire by a stalker succumbs, Jharkhand outraged. Azad says he was forced to quit Congress. Jairam hits back, headlines the Asian Age. Amid floods, Pakistan open to restarting trade with India. Modi extends condolences in rare outreach, writes the Hindu. And finally, the Hindu carries a picture of a baby elephant after it was rescued by forest personnel when it was washed away in a river. Efforts are on to reunite the calf with the herd.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council to release competitive roadmap for India at 100 in New Delhi today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls upon IFS officers to help popularize millets for the benefit of farmers. UN General Assembly President Abdullah Shahid says people-to-people ties and key agreements make India-Maldives relations outstanding. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to embark on 3-day visit to United Arab Emirates tomorrow for India-UAE strategic dialogue. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says Prime Minister Modi is the only leader after Mahatma Gandhi who understood the sentiments of the masses. Government is in the process to incorporate sports and its various aspects in school curriculum, says Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. Reliance Jio partners with Meta, Google, Microsoft and Intel to roll out 5G services in India by Diwali. Death toll in Pakistan flood rises to 1,136, around 33 million people affected. Prime Minister Modi expresses sadness over the devastation. And in US Open tennis, reigning champion Daniil Medvedev enters second round of men's singles, beating Stefan Kozlov. And with that, we end the morning news. Have a great day.